she leaned forward and she said, "I'm sorry to have to tell you this, Phil, but you have a binge eating disorder." And I went, "What? A what? Don't be ridiculous," right? And she said, and her face didn't crack, right? She went, "No, you do." I felt it was out of my control. I felt also it was something I'd done. And then what happened was the shame was still existing around that point, Peter. So on my own, with my thoughts, I was, "You stupid, greedy, fat fucker. Look what you've done now. You're about to kill yourself because you've just been greedy and out of control." And the language was really loathsome.
Hello and welcome to the Live Long podcast. I'm Peter Bowes. This is where we explore the art and science of living long and well. But it's not always an easy road, is it, this thing called longevity? For much of my life, I've been known as someone who couldn't just have one chocolate or whatever the treat happened to be. I had to finish the entire box. I couldn't settle for one scoop of ice cream. The whole carton had to go. And if I was at a restaurant and agreed to share a dessert, my idea of sharing wasn't exactly fair to my companion. So you get the picture. I have a sweet tooth, and over the years, I've managed to curb those bingy tendencies, at least for the most part. But whatever issues I've had with food, they pale in comparison to those of my friend Phil. Phil Williams is a broadcaster and journalist based in Manchester in the northwest of England. He is the host of the excellent Books on the Beach podcast and the author of a recent Substack article titled, "I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but you have a binge eating disorder." It is a gut-wrenching account of the life-threatening consequences of compulsive eating and an addiction to sugar. A story that Phil tells with typically disarming humour and an extraordinary level of honesty. And not only has he written about it, but Phil joins us now to continue that conversation. Phil, welcome to the Live Long podcast.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm not sure I would be comfortable doing this if it wasn't you. So it's an honour to be here with you.
Well, that's kind of you to say, Phil. And it is quite a conversation that you've started for someone, as you put it in that article, who is not really one for oversharing.
No, so what my concern was, first of all, let me rewind a couple of bits. I've known you 30 years. I didn't know that you had a sweet tooth. I've turned up loaded up with snacks and you haven't touched any of them, right? And I just would never have guessed. I would never have known that you had the same penchant as I have until you just did that intro.
Well, it's interesting you say that because clearly, as you say, we've known each other for a long time and I didn't know a lot about you that I've discovered in this article. We had lunch. We had lunch just 2 years ago. A nice pub lunch in the north of England. And I mean, we didn't particularly talk about food, but there was no sign to me that you had this kind of issue, which I assume was actually going on at that time. Much of what you write about is last year, but it was building up.
So the diagnosis came in June 25. So what happened was I wasn't a happy man in June 25. I'd lost a regular radio show that I enjoyed doing. I was struggling with my kids who are now 7 and 10 and just struggling with things that just kids do. They were just being kids. They weren't doing anything outlandish, but it was trying my patience too much. And I was using sugar as an emotional crutch for bad news or difficult moments or moments where I didn't quite know how to process what was going on. And so I'd gone to see a psychotherapist. I was really lucky actually, Peter, because I've got an amazing physio because I'm 6'4" as well. So my back often plays up. So my physio recommended the psych. And the psych is down the road. I mean, you do need some luck in these situations to find the right people. And I'd gone to see the psych because I was fed up. That was my mission. If you'd have phoned me then, why are you bothering with a psychotherapist, Phil? I'd say, I'm just fed up. I've just had enough. So that's why I went. And then 3 or 4 sessions in, she said the sentence that you quoted from the top of the Substack. She looked me right in the eye. And I have to tell you a little bit about Kirsty because I think it's really important with a psychotherapist. You have to bond with them because you have to be willing to spill your guts. And if you don't do that, you won't benefit from the psychotherapy. So it's no good having someone that you don't think you can share with. So Kirsty and I have an amazing, and from session 1, always had an amazing rapport. She's about 5 years younger than me. She's really funny. She appreciates my sense of humour. So we can sit there and it doesn't feel like therapy. It's not like, when you see it in the movies and they're lying on the couch and someone's got a clipboard, and it's not that. But she leaned forward and she said, "I'm sorry to have to tell you this, Phil, but you have a binge eating disorder." And I went, "What? A what? Don't be ridiculous," right? And she said, and her face didn't crack, right? She went, "No, you do." And I was like, "Really?" And I came home and I told Catherine, my wife, and Catherine went, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, right, so it's obvious to you, is it?" And she went, "Yeah." I said, "Well, why haven't you said anything?" She said, "Because it's not my place to say anything, really." So I said, and it's okay. Anyway, then one of my homeworks from Kirsty was, because I found this I'm like, what the I was really thrown by this. So one of the homework things she sent me was, you need to tell 5 friends that you've got a binge eating disorder. And the reason she sets you that is because there's a huge amount of shame, as you probably know, with this disorder. And the way that you conquer shame, I'm learning now, is by not allowing it to survive in secrecy and darkness. So shame survives alongside embarrassment. And if you remove the embarrassment, you're no longer ashamed of the condition, of the disorder. So I remember phoning my friend Amanda first, just because I was due to call her anyway. And she's someone I've known since 1992 from university. And I told her, and she said, "Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think I've got that too." Right. And then I called my mate Rich and he said, "Yeah, and?" I remember him saying that, "Yeah, and?" And I went, "So it's not news to you?" "No, don't be silly. No, the way you pack desserts away and blah, 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 blah." And then you start to realise how you've been viewed. And part of the problem with the eating disorder for me is that it became a key part of my identity. So almost not quite competitive eating. It wasn't like competitions, but if we were out, I put this in the piece. I remember being out on a long table having a Sunday lunch in Manchester. And the waiter came over and said, "Any desserts?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, what flavour ice creams have you got?" That's all I asked. And my mate George said, "By the way, pal, 3 scoops minimum or he'll turn the table over." And it was kind of a joke. It was a joke amongst my friends. You mentioned the sharing thing in your intro. In that same place, I ordered Sunday lunch, and we didn't realise as a table that these plates were sharing plates. They were supposed to do 2. So this roast beef Yorkshire pudding came out, and I've smashed it. And then my wife's going, "Where's mine?" I said, "No, they've bought everyone else's." So I said, "Sorry, where's my wife's?" And he said, "You've eaten it." And I wasn't aware that was a sharing platter.
I'm thinking if we didn't live in different countries and we'd clearly seen each other a lot more in person over the last few years, maybe my reaction would have been a little different, having just heard what you've said that your friends have said and their response. What I'm curious about, just backtracking a little bit, is when this was first explained to you that you had this problem and that it was potentially very, very serious in terms of your health, which was explained to you. What did you think in that moment?
Well, yeah, so I'm sorry, I omitted that. When Kirsty said, "I'm sorry to say this, but you've got a binge eating disorder," and I disbelieved, she said, "It's important that you acknowledge it, because any type of eating disorder, whether it's binge, bulimia, anorexia, any of those family of eating disorders, has a mortality rate of 50%. And I sat there and I didn't have to do too much maths because 50 is quite easy to work out. And I just thought, blimey, if that was a horse, you'd be willing to back that, wouldn't it? Or that's like having a tenner on the cup final winner, knowing you've got a 1 in 2 chance of winning, right? And I thought, right, so I've got a 1 in 2 chance of joshing it. That's not great. And then actually that really deeply upset me. And it upset me because I felt it was out of my control. I felt also it was something I'd done. And then what happened was the shame was still existing around that point, Peter. So on my own, with my thoughts, I was, "You stupid, greedy, fat fucker. Look what you've done now. You're about to kill yourself because you've just been greedy and out of control." And the language was really loathsome, right? And my wife said to me during a conversation about all this, she said, "What worries me is that you speak about yourself in a way that if anyone spoke about your children, you'd kill them. And yet you think it's acceptable to speak about yourself in that way." And so there was real self-loathing after that diagnosis. And then I really want to tell you this because this is quite important as well with eating disorders. At the end of that session, Kirsty said to me, "Now listen, we've obviously just uncovered it. So if you go away and you have a binge between now and the next session, don't worry. All I ask is that will you write in your phone what you think triggered the binge and what you ate? And I sat there, and I didn't know I'd done this, by the way, but I sat there and my mouth went like this. And she said, "What are you smirking at?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "You're smirking." And I said, "Am I?" And I didn't know I was doing it. So she really made me stop and think. And I thought, well, why was I smirking? And then I formed the conclusion that I was smirking because I said to her, "Well, I'm not going to binge now till the next session." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because you've told me I can. So because you've given me permission, I won't do it." All I heard was the sound of a gauntlet being thrown down, and I went, right. And when I told her that, she said, "Oh, competitiveness is a key trait of people with eating disorders."
I was just wondering, in that moment or the moments that followed, when the consequences were laid out to you, whether you thought about your family, whether you thought about people around you, if the worst came to the worst. In other words, what were the pivotal thoughts that you had that eventually spurred you into changing your life?
Well, there was lots of self-loathing. There was lots of nasty language aimed at me, to me, about me. You know, "You silly fat bastard, you greedy bastard, look what you've gone and done now. You know, you've jeopardised your life. Your kids are only 7 and 10. You've done it." And I remember saying that to Kirsty in a subsequent session. I remember saying, "I feel responsible for this because I've shoved the food down. It's me that's binged." And she said, "What you've got to understand is that the binging is a symptom of something else. So you can't blame yourself for that. That is a symptom of anxiety. With me, it's high anxiety and low-grade depression. And so the binge eating is the comfort, right? But it's also not quite as simple as that, Peter, because it's also been celebratory. So get good news, let's go for a meal. Let's, get good news, get Domino's in, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, we were, the warning signs were there, I put in this piece. We did, my youngest would have been 4, just gone to reception, right, at school. And we did his parents' night. And his teacher was lovely. She said, "Oh, we're really pleased. He's settling in really well." And I said, "Oh, that's good," because we were worried, he was part-time last year at nursery and thought full-time might kill him, as in tire him, And his teacher said, no, he's great. And my lad said, "Yeah, because I used to finish at 11 on Wednesdays, miss. And then Dad would pick me up and we'd go and have Daddy Fun Days out." And she said, "Oh, that's great. What kind of things would you do on a Daddy Fun Day?" And he said, "Oh, we used to go Krispy Kreme and smash a box of donuts." And I'm like, that made me freeze because it factually was correct. It was that we did do that, but he would have half a donut and say, "I'm full." This is the other thing I've learned from my kids. We don't restrict sugar at all for the kids, right? They have pudding every night, right? But you give them 4 squares of dairy milk and they go, "I'm full." And if you occasionally give them more than 4, they go, "Dad, can you put those back?" "I'm full." I was never full with that stuff. Right? I don't know about you, but I was never, I remember covering a court case once with people you'll know, right, in the north of England, Kevin Bacay, John Thorne, Richard Wells, and it was at Leeds Crown Court, and the judge used to enjoy his lunch, right? So we had 90 minutes for lunch. So we'd come out of court, I would file for Radio 1, they'd file for Radio 4, and then we'd convene in the pub, have a couple of pints and a full pub lunch. And they used to do this dessert in this pub, which was 2 slices of chocolate cheesecake on a sharer plate. And the idea was, I think it was for couples or friends or whatever. And me and the cameraman would have 2 each and see who could finish first. And that was like a fun thing to do in the pub.
I know exactly what you're talking about because, my issues haven't been to the level of yours. I think that's obvious. And I think it's very easy for people sometimes, as you've experienced, to say, "Oh, I think that's me as well." But then you've got to really dig deep and see whether you have a problem that goes as far as you've got a 50-50 chance of surviving it. And for me, I can see the tendencies there. And the tendencies were that I just couldn't have one. So therefore, I understand what you're saying. I couldn't just have one. It had to be 2 bowls, 3 bowls, 4 bowls of ice cream until the fridge is empty. And the same applied to other sweet foods. I think I have managed through purely self-determination to get over that. Sometimes it happens, it still happens, but not to the extremes that you've described.
But can I tell you what my psych said about that, Peter?
Go on.
She, then when I went in and I had a binge, I'd been to, I tell you what I'd done, which was really silly thing. In my view, this was a silly thing to do, is I was so worried I should have explained at the beginning that this just didn't come out of the blue, the eating. I'd had a year of health issues last year where I had high blood pressure, got put on medication. And then when I went in for that appointment, the doctor listened to my breathing and didn't like something he'd heard on my chest. So he then put me in this system of CT scans, 3 or 4 different heart tests, right? So that was the backdrop to it. So I tried to go really super clean. And I remember I'd done 3 days super clean, no carbohydrates, plates full of vegetables and protein. And I was climbing the walls. I was loathing it and I was starving. So I went to McDonald's with the kids and I did a double cheeseburger meal. So that's large fries, large Coke. And then I did a box of 20 nuggets, of which the kids had 3, and I had the rest, right? And then I ordered a single hamburger. And then I sat there and went, right? And there's I don't know about you, when I've binged, there's a 30-minute euphoria. I felt like Ewan McGregor in Train Spotting when he just smacked up. There's a 30-minute binge effect where you go, right? And all the noise has just gone. The noise goes, and the worry just dissipates. And for those 30 minutes, you feel like 10 men, right? And then all of a sudden, if it's McDonald's and stuff, it'll be, the stomach will go. If it's sugar, it starts to be a headache. And you start to feel awful. So it's a very short-lived. And then if you perpetuate this, what I found is that then I'd need more McDonald's or more chocolate, more cream eggs, more mini eggs, because the effect is diminished. It's a law of diminishing returns. So I was in with Kirsty and I said, I'd been to Macca's and I'd smashed all this food. And she said, let me ask you a question. She said, how many chicken nuggets do you reckon you actually ate? And I said, 17. And she said, did the 17th one taste as good as the first one? And I went, no. Didn't even have to think about it. No, it didn't. No. Did the 10th one taste as good as the first one? I said, no. She said, did the 6th one taste as good as the first one? I said, no, not really. Did the 4th one? I said, yeah, the 4th one did. She said, okay, so next time just have 4. And I'm like, God, that's so simple. But I wouldn't have thought in that way.
And I think you've just defined the classic addiction scenario then.
Well, you say that, but you see,
addiction to me is a compulsion that has really no logic to it. It is just something that you do and you can't explain.
Well, I'll blow logic to you even more, right? I remember going to the supermarket to shop when I was in the middle of all this. I hadn't quite decided to give up the sugar, right? And so I'm doing the big shop, going up and down the aisles with the trolley, right? Wife and kids are away for a week, so it's just me feeding me, right? I get to the booze section, and I'd been doing, at the time, I think it was summer, it must have been June, July, and I'd been doing a lot of these cocktails in a can. Did you get those in LA?
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah. And they're great, they're really tasty, they're high alcohol, but they're full of sugar, right? There's tons of sugar in them, right? So I've been caning these, and I get to the aisle where those cans are, and I go, nah, don't have those because they're full of sugar. And then I get to the chocolate aisle, and I can't have the same discipline. The chocolate goes in the trolley. So, if I was a truly addictive personality, I would just swap addictions.
Right.
But I've never smoked. I'm not addicted to booze. I could turn the booze away in the supermarket, but I couldn't walk past the dairy milk. So what I've cut out now, I think with these things, if you want to get on top of them, you have to identify your poison. So for me, it's all chocolate, cake, biscuits, sweets, ice cream, and Coca-Cola. That's gone. I was mainlining Coke. I'd do like a litre with a Domino's. That's supposed to be a family share bottle. It was all going in my cup.
Over how many years did you live like this?
Well, I'll tell you a story because I then, so those 5 people, I didn't get, it's interesting. I didn't get to, and this is no offence to Amanda and Rich because I love them dearly, but I didn't get to my best mate, who was my best man at our wedding, until last. He was the last of the 5 because I just was so ashamed. I couldn't dial his number and say the words, I have been told I've got an eating disorder. And when I finally did it, my voice cracked as I told him. And then he said to me, the thing is, he said, do you remember when we were at college and we used to run the SU shop? Now, mate, we were 19 when we did this, right? And I was 51 last year when I was told about the disorder. And I said, oh, yeah, didn't we used to shut the shop for a bit and just kind of eat a few chocolate bars? And he said, yeah, we would shut the shop and put the close sign up. And then we'd binge I would probably do 4 or 5 chocolate bars in one sitting, and then we'd reopen the shop. So that was 19. So I was doing it at 19. But I just didn't realise it was a problem because over the years, what I had done, I went a whole year when I was living in London, what would that be, in about 2008? I gave up just chocolate for a year. But all I did was hit the sweets. So I just swapped one for the other. And then around my 50th, well, just before my 50th, I gave up everything sweet that I've just laid out to you. I gave up for 12 months, and then I was turning 50. And this is where my brain was. We'd planned to go on holiday to Mallorca, just as a family, just me and my wife and the two boys. And I thought, there is no way I'm having a 50th birthday and not having a cake, right? So I thought naively, I'll go back on the sugar for the holiday. And then once I'm back off holiday, I'll kick it again, because I've kicked it once, right? But I should mention, if you're eating the level of sugar that I ate, when I say kicked it, I'd done 14 days solid paracetamol because the headaches were blinding. So the grip it gets on your body and the withdrawal, if you decide to kick it into touch, the withdrawal is obscene, really obscene.
Just going on a little sidetrack here, you said a few moments ago, Phil, about your high blood pressure. Just tell me how high it was.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Because I was shocked. I didn't think such a high level of blood pressure was even possible.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm laughing because I don't really like doctors, right? I don't get on with them. And I mistrust medical places, right? That's just a thing. So I get they call it white coat syndrome, which is where you go into these places. I mean, you could do my blood pressure at your house, right? And it'd be sound. And then I'd go next door to the medical centre and it would be, right? And so every time, and this is every time, I mean, I remember when I was in London, I used to do these, Bupa do these full body MOTs where you can get on a bike and with a nose peg and they'll test your aerobic fitness. And they nearly didn't let me on the bike because my blood pressure was so high. But when I got on the bike, I couldn't pedal fast enough to exceed their 2/3 of your maximum limit because I was way fitter than the blood pressure was showing. So anyway, I went to this GP who was doing the heart stuff and he did it. And he'd left the machine facing me so I could see. And then as soon as he saw me look, he tilted it because he didn't want me to see it. But it was the top figure was 210 and the bottom one was 135. And if you're thinking, well, how high is that, Phil? Just to let you know, in the UK, 120 to 140 is where you should be on the top reading. And on the bottom, you should be 70 to 90.
Yeah, exactly. So life-threatening high level of blood pressure.
Yeah.
And you'd known this for some time, but...
Not about the blood pressure, no, because what had happened, there'd been blood pressure triggers, right? There'd been triggers because I've got a machine at home. And so I'd do it at home, and every time I do it at home, it would drop. It wouldn't drop to perfect, but maybe the top figure would be 157 and the bottom one will be 75. And I'm like, well, I'm all right with that. You know what I mean? But then they've put the medication. I mean, I'll level with you. I haven't taken my blood pressure for ages. The machine's only by the bed. I'm tempted to offer to do it live on your podcast, but I don't know if the reading's bad. I don't know how to react.
Do you want to do that?
Do you want me to? I'll go and get it if you want me to.
In fact, if you can give me 30 seconds, I'll go and get mine and we can do it together.
Yeah, go on then. All right, deal.
Okay, I'm back.
Right, you're back in. Okay.
There you go.
Great. So there's your machine. So I'm going to put my cuff on now. And we should just say, really, Peter, probably certainly here, that if you're going to do this, I mean, we're obviously doing this for hopefully a little bit of fun, but if you're going to do this seriously, you should do 3 readings at a time, take the average.
Right.
Once in the morning, once at night, 7 days, take the average. So you can always get a rogue reading. But
and usually not while you're doing an interview.
Not while you're on a podcast, even though it's not live and we've known each other years. And but not when you've been running around all day like a blue-ass fly. So let's see.
Here we go.
Yeah, so I'm quite high at the moment, but not as high as I was. Mine's come back at 172 over 113.
And mine's come back unusually high at 138 over 92. I think if we even just leave it 10 minutes and do it again, we'll get
okay, good idea. All right, I'll do
have a kind of relaxing conversation and we'll just do it again in a few minutes' time. So, Phil, tell me, you've heard all of this bad news. You've acknowledged that you had a serious, potentially life-threatening problem.
Yeah.
What did you do first? to try to come out of this?
Well, the first thing, so I obviously carried on with the therapy, and what we tried to do was to, I'm just going to leave this off now. We tried to explore whether we could find a solution to the sugar addiction without packing it in. So another piece of homework Kirsty gave me was to go into a co-op. I only say that because it's over the road from where she was working. So go into a kind of shop, grab a chocolate bar, eat it, and then walk away from that shop and not eat anything else that day, chocolatey. And I never fulfilled that, not because I breached it, but because I just knew that I wasn't capable of doing that. So I just said to her, I can't do that because I know I won't just buy the one. Or I will buy the one and then give it an hour and I'll be back in another shop on school pickup, or give it kids' tea time and I'll be eating whatever they're having for their pudding. There was always a route. And then a lot of people said to me, well, just don't have it in the house. But I remember one night having a real blazing row with the eldest child. He'd really pissed me off, really got under my skin. And he went off up to bed and I went out to the garage and bought 2. I don't know if you have them in America, Peter, but they now, all the popular chocolate bars that were around when you were last here, they do duo versions. So they're basically 2.
Right.
So I bought 2 duos and I smashed them in the car on the way home. They never even got back to my house. They were gone on the drive back, which is about a mile. So I thought, I can't do that. And I told Kirsty that. And then she said, I think we're going to have to be looking at abstinence then. How do you feel about that? And I said, well, I just, it wasn't much how I felt about that. It was more that, because we haven't got to the grim stuff yet. So I'll just I feel really bad because Peter's such a lovely man and I'm way more gross than Peter is. But just to let you know what my kind of flaw was.
And just to explain, Phil, and you explain in your article about the kind of language that you use to describe what was happening to you. It's not because that's how you normally speak. It's because it actually helps you to deal with... I know it's a little bit of that, but it's more than that in this situation.
Yeah, so there's a comic book that you'll know really well, right, because it originates from your part of the UK, called Viz, and they specialise in toilet humour. And I find if I use the euphemisms from that I can speak about it. But if you start expecting me to describe terms in a biological manner, I would clam up quite quickly. So I can't really do that because one of the things and Kirsty's pulled me up on this in therapy, is that I deflect with humour. So quite often I deflect with humour. And so, go on.
So I was just going to say, for anyone watching or listening, that's why there's a little check on the explicit box for this particular podcast. We don't usually have them. But
sorry about that. That's my fault.
No. It's not your fault at all. I want this to be genuine.
Okay, well, so here goes the grim bit. I was pissing out of my arse up to 6 times a day, sometimes 7. And I use that phrase specifically because there was no solidity to what was passing. It was like molten liquid coming out of my backside. And that was all because of the sugar. And I was waking up so I'd go to bed fine, no problem. And then anywhere between 2 and 3 hours of sleep, I would wake up with the same caustic acid feeling all the way here. You could feel it just this part of my chest. It would get up to the back of your throat. It felt like someone had poured battery acid down my throat. And I'd be fast asleep, so I wouldn't want to do much. I didn't want to get out of bed if I didn't have to. So I would reach for Rennie on the bedside table and I'd suck these Rennie in the hope that it would deal with it, and it wouldn't. So I'd have 2 more. And I'd have 2 more. And I think you're only supposed to have something like 6 of those in 24 hours. And I was doing 6 in about 5 minutes just to calm the acid here. You just get that sorted and then your stomach would go and you'd like, oh Christ, now I've got to get out of bed. And it would just be like molten lava falling out your arse. And that's where I hit rock bottom with it. So since I wrote this article, I've spoken to a lot of people with a range of food disorders because I've had a lot of reaction to it. And some people haven't hit rock bottom. And that's the only thing I would say about if you're trying to get on top of an eating disorder, you have to have reached your lowest tolerance point before you're willing to make a change. Because if you're not willing, if it's not that bad, nothing will stop you from changing, which is why I've been unsuccessful in the past. So now, I mean, it's really hot here. As you and I record, it's unseasonably warm in Manchester. It's 20, it normally pisses down here, but it's 29 degrees. And so I picked the kids up from school today. I've got them both a chocolate ice cream. And because it's so hot, one's melted. So I've had to hold it. I've had chocolate ice cream drip onto my hand. And so what I've had to do is just get a wipe and wipe that. I can't, that would be the end of the world to do that, because it would make me want to go and get one for myself. But I'm not so bad that I can't give it to my children responsibly. That's fine. And I don't think, God, I need one now. That I've got beyond that point now. But that's why I decided that shit's got to go, because it was literally affecting my shit. Not in an American way where people say, oh, my shit's bad. I mean, it genuinely affecting my... And it was ruining my sleep, and it was ruining my mood. And I spoke to someone this morning here who confided in me that she's tackling a bulimia disorder, and that she's had really nasty stomach complaints as a result. And I've got an additional stomach condition, which I'm not sure I mentioned in that piece, called diverticular. I don't know if you know what that is. Okay. But I can explain it in layman's terms. I mean, again, we should couch all this by, Peter and I are journalists, we're not medical professionals, but diverticular, small pouches, like, you know, the little condom pocket on jeans. They form inside your bowel, and you can't get rid of them. You can't unform them, but you can stop new ones from forming. And when they form, sometimes your waste can get stuck in one of those pouches and not pass through you. And on a proper flare-up, and I spoke to Paul Merson about this, you know, the footballer, the former Arsenal and England player, because he's got it. And he has the same thing as me. On a proper flare-up, I've had to sleep by kneeling on the floor and resting my head on the mattress, because that was the only way my stomach wasn't in absolute spasm. And that took ages to pick up, the diverticular, because at first they did an ultrasound like they do on pregnant women, and they said, well, we can't find anything wrong. And then they did the one where you go all the way through the tunnel.
MRI?
Correct, yeah, MRI. I knew it was 3 initials and I was going to give you the wrong 3. And they give you this purple liquid to drink as well, so it highlights what's going on. And that was where they found these pouches. So, I mean, no clinician has said to me that's because you've binged the sugar, but then they probably don't know. I don't really sit in a doctor's waiting room or doctor's surgery and go, you never believe what I did last week. I smashed 12 donuts out of a Krispy Kreme box. I don't do that. So, yeah, but I'm convinced that's led to that. So there is also other repercussions, you see. That's the point I'm making. It's not just the disorder. It's what damage are you doing to your body. And do you remember years ago, I think you were still in the UK when Ben Elton broke big here.
Yeah.
And Ben Elton's a stand-up comic and a comedy writer. And he wasn't talking about chocolate. He was talking about lager and people being, drinking too much. And he said, you wouldn't pour 10 pints of lager and a curry into your brand new hi-fi, would you? So why do you do it to your body? And I'm like, actually, that kind of works with sugar. It really is. The body is the most amazing thing that we're given. We take it for granted. I mean, I used to, when you're out for dinner and you say to someone, do you want dessert? And they go, oh, no, thanks, my body's a temple. Right? You heard people say that, right?
Yeah.
And my stock response to that was, my body's an amusement park. And then everyone would laugh. And that would get a laugh. And I'd walk away going, oh, you're funny, you've got a laugh. But really deep down, I'm thinking that you should not be treating this piece of technology like in that way, really.
I don't know whether we've talked about this in the past, but I stopped drinking alcohol about 14, 15 months ago. It was April of last year. Yeah.
Right.
And that wasn't because of an addiction to alcohol. I wasn't even drinking excessively. I was just gradually over the years drinking less and less and enjoying it still in the moment, but not enjoying it or not enjoying the after effects of sometimes just one glass of wine, let's say, after about 30 minutes, certainly an hour. And then the next morning I'd still have the fuzzy kind of head, not through being drunk, but just drinking a quantity of alcohol. And I got to that point in my life thinking, why do it? What is the point?
Yeah.
Alcohol is great for a moment, but there are no positives apart from that feel-good factor that you get on drinking, that sociable aspect of drinking alcohol. And so I just stopped drinking it and haven't. And as time goes on, I don't have a desire to drink it. Just occasionally, I might see people socially drinking a glass of red wine. I think that would be nice. But very quickly, I understand how I will feel and essentially relive those moments after drinking alcohol that I absolutely hate. And that is enough now to stop me drinking alcohol, even in a small quantity. And I think that's what you're saying about sugar, that you see it as this vile thing that is going to do you harm.
It's a causer of pain now. It's a causer of pain. And I think if you can associate, pain's quite powerful. And if you can associate pain with what you're about to imbibe, then it can stop you from doing it. But I just want to make a kind of additional, I think this point's really important, maybe not so much for people of your podcast, your regulars, maybe, because they are obviously interested in exploring longevity in life. But Stephen Bartlett got a load of heat recently, didn't he, for the Diary of a CEO guy, for saying, I had 3 drinks and it ruined my podcast. Do you remember you seen all those comments?
Yeah.
And I just want to make clear, I don't think you're saying this about drink, and I'm not saying this about sugar. We're not saying don't have it, because we're not the fun police. I think what I'm saying is, if you're relying on any substance to cushion your emotions and it's causing you physical harm, then you need professional help to address that. But we're not saying, everyone should stop eating sugar, nobody should drink. No one's saying that at all. But what we're talking about is effects that are direct to us, our experiences of things that we've put into our body that haven't reacted well with our bodies.
Yeah. And for us as individuals, well, certainly speaking for myself, the enjoyment of having a clear-headed morning far outweighs any enjoyment momentary enjoyment that I'm going to get from a glass of wine the night before.
Yeah, and that's the same with me now. I'm now sleeping, not at the moment in 29 degrees, but mostly I'm sleeping cleanly through the night, right? And I'm not waking up. I couldn't tell you the last time I had a Rennie or a chalk tablet. I couldn't tell you the last time my diverticulitis flared up. I can normally spot it coming now. If I've had, say, a pizza and then the following day I have more bread on top of the pizza, that's a bad look for me, for the diverticular. I'm really happy. I mean, I'm quite hard on myself, really, as we've probably established in this podcast. But Kirsty says you need to give yourself credit for where you've come in 12 months, because there are some people who take 2 years just to understand they've got a disorder. They don't change any behaviour. They're still trying to comprehend, what does that mean? What does the binge eating disorder mean, or the bulimia or whatever? So I looked it up earlier for the woman that I spoke to who was swapping stories with me about her eating disorder. I think it's something like 295 days now that I've not had any. I call it the filth, by the way. So I've had to give it an identity. This is something Kirsty was keen for me to do. Give the food group that was hurting me an identity. Make it a thing, because then it's easier to personalise and dislike it. So it's the group, the Coke, sweets, chocolate, ice cream, biscuits, cake. They're known as collectively the filth. So in fact, I'll show you if you want. I'll get my app up. I've got a little counter that tells me how many days it's, because I think it's quite good that I don't. There we go, 292. And if you can see that on the camera, It says filth free.
Filth free.
Yeah.
That's a great name for a podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, sadly not yours when you invite me on. I apologise for that.
Yeah, no, this has certainly been an experience, but I think a valuable one. Just tell me, I mean, you're clearly in a much better place now, and you say there's been quite an extraordinary reaction to the article that you wrote. What do you, for other people, maybe people watching or listening to this, what do you hope people can glean and gain from your story?
So that's a really interesting question, because I think I definitely don't want to come across as pious or, well, look at him, he's dealt with his addiction in 12 months. You know what I mean? I think there was good. Well, I was concerned about that. I tell you what I'll do is I'll read to you. You're probably getting from this that I feel really fortunate to have met Kirsty. She's a phenomenal psychotherapist. And at 4:59 today, a minute before you and I were due to record, she said, "Good luck at 5. I think speaking about hard things and sharing is probably just about the most wonderful thing we can do as humans. It's so important to let others know that they are not alone. And already you have stopped someone else continuing to blindly go through what you've had to. If there can be something good that comes out of suffering, then that can only be a wonderful way to make sense of your own journey. I hope it goes well." That's when I get a bit emotional, because, she's amazing, and I wouldn't have done that without her. So I think what she said, basically, to answer your question, if someone else, the reaction to the Substack has been, thank you for shining a light on this. It's so brave, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't feel brave to me, Peter, because of that line that I said earlier, where shame only exists in secrecy. So the more that I can put this out, then the less shame there is attached to it, which means it doesn't feel as a brave a task as others say. But if I can stop someone else from developing nasty stomach issues, or also sometimes just thinking, sometimes there's safety in numbers, isn't there? Just someone going, oh Christ, I do that. I've had a lot of blokes say to me, I do that with chocolate. And maybe I shouldn't. And even if it just plants the seed, then it's done its job, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think you've done a great job in talking in the way that you do. I acknowledge some of those traits in myself that honestly I haven't talked about in public before, because I've never really seen it as such a huge problem. And I don't want to exaggerate my situation, because I think I have got that under control now. It occasionally flares up, if you want to use that expression, where something happens and you go straight to the fridge. But in general terms... And
are you more conscious if that happens, as you're going to the fridge, do you have the thought process of don't take too many of these?
Yeah, exactly. And I think control is something that is a big part of this, that you manage to get your life and those binge tendencies under control.
Kirsty said to me that a lot of people binge eat when they lack control in other areas of their lives. So a job was taken from me. Children who I adore were really testing my patience. And I just felt maybe out of control in so many areas. So the one area I could control was driving to the garage, buying the double-decker duo, eating it. I was exerting control, albeit terrible control.
Exactly. And the other reason I wanted, apart from being emotionally quite moved by what you had to say and wanting to talk to you on this podcast, is that this is a podcast about human longevity, living long, living well, which sometimes can become a bit of a cliche. And, there's a pushback from some people that, well, just live and, let live your life. Don't worry about your longevity. You're going to die when you're going to die, and all this kind of stuff. And I strongly believe in doing certain things in my life that can at least extend my healthy years, but equally want to acknowledge that it's really difficult for some people, and that we all have issues. Many of us have issues that can prevent us from living a long and healthy life, and we need to get those in perspective.
It's when you're... I got my first job at 21. Were you younger, or did you go through a university system?
Yeah, I was about 21 as well. I went to college. I changed careers dramatically at about the age of 21. I was destined to be working in science and biology and research, which kind of helps me do this podcast. But I acknowledged what was always inside me, and that was an urge to do this kind of work, to do broadcasting, radio, television, as we've both done together over the decades.
So you try talking to a 21-year-old and persuading them to set a pension up. And they go, pension? I'm 21, mate. I can't afford a round in the pub. I don't need a pension. And all of a sudden they get to pensionable age. It's the same thing, I think, what you're discussing. I think there's a problem with culture today as well. And I mentioned Bartlett. He's a key exponent of this optimization culture that we're living in. And I think it's important. I'm sure people know from your tone that you are not suggesting optimizing. What you're saying is, well, I'd quite like to live a bit longer, actually. I quite like this living thing. It's all right. It's for me. How do I do it a bit longer without aggravating it? And I can see that what I've done is I've kind of kicked the bee's nest a little bit. I've kind of poked the hornet's nest and gone, oh, right, live long. Go on then. Well, let's test it by eating badly. And so now, and I really feel this deeply, Peter. I have a real responsibility to my boys. I think if I leave this planet and it's my fault, see, Kirsty would tell me off for that. She'd tell me off for saying it's your fault. But that's how I viewed the eating. Then I'd be fuming with myself, although I'd be there. But do you know what I mean? You know the point I'm making? Whereas, I think I owe it to them, really. They rely on me so much. I want to see them at least set up in their adult lives before I shuffle off to the great Pizza Hut in the sky.
Well, Phil, you say that. Often I ask people as I close these interviews what longevity means to you and how you see your decades ahead, and perhaps why you are striving to live as long a healthy life as possible. And I would say overwhelmingly people answer by saying, I want to be here for my children and my grandchildren. I want to help them. I want to be part of their lives. I want to share whatever wisdom I have with them. And that is the number one reason why people say that they want to live to a great, healthy age.
I've got another one, which is more selfish, way more selfish. But I'm just going to be honest. I've been honest throughout the podcast, right? I haven't had a decent holiday since we had kids. Right, because the minute you have kids, your holidays are just what my brother likes to call shit and chips holidays, which is where you go somewhere that's resorty and you chuck them in the pool all day, wear them out, and then you get a load of chips in, and then you see if you can get them to sleep any time before 10 o'clock. Thanks very much. And because we met you on our honeymoon, for example, that, my wife and I used to do amazing trips to North America and to Mexico and places like that. So the other reason I want to increase this longevity is that I'm really looking forward to having the time back when the kids have gone and it's just Catherine and me. And I'm not wishing them out the house by any stretch, but I'm just looking forward to that. Some people find when their kids get older that they've got nothing left to say to each other because it was only about the kids. But I've got such a great relationship with Catherine. I can't wait to go and have some more fun with her. So really it's about prolonging the fun. I had a lot of fun in my 20s and 30s, but it wasn't with my wife. It was with bands, and it was doing Radio 1 and doing 5 live entertainment stuff and just doing rock and roll showbiz reporting like you've done, and rubbing shoulders with film stars. And now what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to reach 65 and still be fit enough to go and do a touring holiday with her where we have the best time in the world, just we don't eat as many desserts. Well, I don't.
It's about prolonging the fun. I like that, Phil.
Yeah,
Another guest that I spoke to said it's about just keeping the parade going. I think it's the same kind of sentiment.
That's nice. That's
Phil,
nice.
Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it. I've still got my blood
you're
pressure.
Really welcome. Oh, you want to go for it? Yeah, go on.
I think we should. We did it. I don't know. It was 20 minutes ago, and mine was a little high. But I'd been running around.
Mega high. If my GP's watching this, I'm not coming in.
Here we go.
Oh, you pressed it already. I've got to put the cuff back on. Hang on.
Okay. When we first knew each other 20 plus years ago, did we ever imagine we'd be doing this?
Doing his and his blood pressure readings on a podcast. I know.
Laughing too much while you're taking your blood pressure. Oh, mine's just failed. I think I didn't have my arm straight. I'm going to try it again.
Right. Okay. Don't make me laugh now. Here we go. Mine's gone up. So there we are.
Oh, it's higher than it was a few minutes ago?
It's higher. Yeah. I've just had too much excitement with you, Peter. 187/109, which is a bit naughty, really.
Yeah. So mine is 135/90. Before it was 138/92. So it's gone down ever slightly.
Okay, but yours has dropped.
But it's still high for me. But this is an unusual situation. And I think,
and also it shows you need to keep a watching brief on these things. That's right. Why I didn't mind doing it with you, right? Because actually, that is high now. So I will carry that up for the rest of the week now, just to make sure, because otherwise I'll just need to up the medication.
I mean, my doctor and I'll not go into the long, we'll be here for another hour if I told you the entire history. But there was a time when we were looking at my blood pressure, and he said, look, just go home, test it 3 times a day, every day for the next month, and come back and see me. And it gave a really good outline of the highs and the lows. And it was a really good snapshot, but it was a realistic one because it was done at home, done while I was relaxed. And I think that's the time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've referenced the heat, but I am at the moment sweating like so, it kind of, that's not going to help my reading at all.
That's the only thing I'm going to cut out of this. The only thing. I don't care about the projectile diarrhea or anything like that, but the comment you've just made, I don't want to live with.
Right, let me stop laughing so you can
And because I've just edited that out, no one even knows what we're talking about. But Phil, it has been a great pleasure. As I say, I admire what you're doing.
It's been an honour to besmirch your podcast with my filth. And but I hope it helps someone. I hope someone listening who maybe is in the right boat, or the same boat, I should say, can maybe address what their demons. But it's been a genuine honour, Peter. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
Really appreciate it. All the best, Phil. The Live Long podcast is a HealthSpan media production. I'm Peter Bowes. You can contact me through our website, livelongpodcast.com, where you'll also find show notes for this episode.
This podcast is for informational, educational and entertainment purposes only. We do not offer medical advice. If you have health concerns of any kind, or you are considering adopting a new diet or exercise regime, you should first consult your doctor.